Ukraine will demand $300 billion in reparations from Russia. This amount was announced by the Ministry of Justice of Ukraine, noting that the damage from the invasion of the Russian occupiers significantly exceeds this figure. However, this amount corresponds to the Russian central bank assets in the G7 countries, which were frozen as part of the sanctions. Kyiv has already received a verbal agreement from Western countries to transfer them to Ukraine.
There is no doubt that the amount of damage is greater. We will demand an even larger amount. But based on realities, what they have brought is like $300 billion. It will serve to compensate and support our economy.
According to Ministry of Justice Denis Maluska, a legal mechanism is being developed. The ministry is preparing an international treaty which Western countries can join and then transfer Russian assets to Ukraine on its basis. The biggest stumbling block is how to proceed so that the international courts do not recognize this as an infringement of property rights.
Whichever country we talk to, there is political agreement. The only question is to provide legal mechanisms on how to do this. Russia is doing everything it can to drive the economies of the European Union and Western countries into an economic and energy crisis. Accordingly, transfer of Russian funds to Ukraine would be the right political decision under such conditions.
Ukraine was first to implement the confiscation procedure. That is why the world's attention is focused on this process, its legality and consequences. Thus, the Supreme Anti-Corruption Court of Ukraine for the first time confiscated the property of the Russian oligarch in Ukraine, billionaire Vladimir Yevtushenkov. We are talking about the seizure of 17 real estate objects and shares in 5 Ukrainian companies. Earlier, the Justice Ministry said that it might confiscate the property of more than 300 of the sub-sanctioned individuals.
It doesn't have to end there. We are waiting for more lawsuits. Next in line are the properties of Deripaska, Babakov, Rotenberg, Friedman, Miller and other Putin oligarchs. Vitaly Shabunin, head of the Anti-Corruption Action Center NGO, on Facebook.
Canada was the first and so far the only state other than Ukraine to legislate such a confiscation procedure. The United States is also looking for legal mechanism to seize assets of Putin's associates. The EU plans to take a more traditional route and allow the confiscation of assets under an ordinary criminal conviction.
It would be right for Russia to pay for the damage it has caused and the assets it has criminally expropriated from Ukraine. So far, the US and other states have intelligently regulated their military interventions, but as a result, the Russian military machine is suppressing Ukraine. The world community must act aggressively, using all the economic and legal tools at its disposal. From the Politico publication.
At the UN General Assembly, the Ukrainian delegation intends to achieve the adoption of a resolution which has to be the basis for the creation of an international mechanism of compensation. According to the Ministry of Justice, Ukraine is not going to stop at the recovery of the reserves of the Russian Central Bank. This will be followed by the seizure of assets of state companies, Russian oligarchs and the Russian political elite. Experts note, in this way, the financial burden of Ukraine's recovery will fall on those responsible for the destruction, the Russian Federation and its citizens. Reported by Diana Kolesnik, Victoria Sinko, UATV News.